Hi guys, welcome to Neuraltechanalytics. Today in our Power BI training class, we will learn about data connectivity modes in Power BI. So whenever we are trying to create a Power BI project, first thing what we do, we bring the data to Power BI. We go to the get data, we connect to our data source and bring the data to Power BI. So whenever we try to connect with any kind of data, so there are different modes of interacting with the data. There are different ways we can interact with our source database. It can be a source database or it can be Excel file, it can be anything. So there are different ways. So let's understand the data connectivity modes. So first mode is import mode. So let's say I'm trying to bring the data from my SQL Server database, which is there in my local system. So let me to connect to my SQL Server database and let me to give you my, let me to put my DB server name. So I'm putting here my DB server name. So now you can see there are two data connectivity mode here. One is import and one is direct query. So what exactly is import mode? Import mode enables to load the data physically from the data source to Power BI file and store it in a compressed format in Power BI memory. And that's like Power, if you understand the Power BI or any kind of tabular model, they is a basically in memory technology. So there is an engine called Vertipack engine, which is known as X velocity engine, where the data is compressed and stored. So import should be the default choice, and it's a by default Power BI also gives you import as a default option. Why import is default or import is better? Because report responsiveness would be fastest in case of import, as query would run against in-memory data. And in terms of features, it also provides the maximum flexibility, as the Power BI native language like AM or DAX can be fully utilized. So let's connect to our database with import mode and we'll see how it is faster. So let me to connect. Now it's getting connected. Okay. So now it's got connected to my DB server, and let me to bring two tables to Power BI. I'll just bring two tables. One is date table and one is our maybe sales table. So these two tables will load to the Power BI. So what import will do? Import will first connect to our database and then it will evaluate and it will bring all the rows, or it will read all the rows from our database to the Power BI in memory. But there is one important limitation of import mode, and that is that there is 1 GB limit. More than that you cannot import. So data size after compression should not be more than 1 GB as per the Power BI Pro license. If you are working in Power BI Premium, things are different, but with a Pro license, maximum you can bring data up to 1 GB after compression, and that's the limitation of import mode. Now you see data has been imported to Power BI in memory, or now data is residing in Power BI in memory. So how we can know that it is a import mode? We can like hover our mouse on these tables and you can see the storage mode is import. So this tells us that this is in import mode. And another way of doing this is you can go to the model view, and here if you click on the our particular table and you can click on the advanced, you can see also storage mode is import. So that means our data currently is in import mode, or these tables are in import mode. Okay, so we are clear about import mode. Now let's go to check one more mode, which is direct query. So let me to create a new PBI file, new Power BI file. So what exactly is direct query mode? So direct query mode, only the metadata like table structures like field names, data types, etc. gets loaded into Power BI. No physical data of actual data happens. I mean, sorry, no physical transformation of actual data happens. Direct query is basically a primary intended for the near real-time reporting. As every time user interacts with a report, all the queries directly hit the data source and get evaluated and retrieve the data to Power BI. That means, let's say I am going to repeat the same thing. I'm going to connect to my, it's becoming a little slow. Okay. Okay. Now let me to connect to my same data source. I will connect to my SQL Server. Give me a DB server. Now you can see we have another mode called direct query. Here I have put it as a direct query. Here also I have option like I can write a particular SQL. If you don't want to pull all the columns from a particular table or all the columns from a joining of multiple one or more tables, you can write a SQL query. For this particular training purpose, I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to click on OK, and we will connect to our DB server and we will connect to the tables directly. Now it's opening the navigator for us, and we'll connect to the same tables what we brought or what we connected in import mode. So dim date and fact internet cells. Now we are connected to these two tables in a direct mode. So how can we know that we are connected through a direct mode? We again, now you can see here, after creating connection, no rows will be imported. It is not going to read any physical data, because as in direct query, the schema or the metadata will be loaded to the Power BI. No physical transfer of actual data will happen. So now we are connected. Now if you hover the mouse on the top of this particular table like dim date, you can see storage mode is direct query. And also if you see check the fact internet cells, you can see the storage mode is direct query. And also in the down, if you can see, storage mode is also direct query. So now if you want to change from direct query to import, you can, but again you can only do once you again go back to import, you cannot change to direct query. So now from direct query, if you want to go back to import mode, you can just click here, double click on it, and it will change to the import mode. But once you go back to the import mode, again you cannot come back to the direct query mode. So what are the limitations or what are the drawbacks of direct query? See, one of the good part of direct query or why we use direct query is basically for the near real-time reporting. As every time user interacts with a report, all the queries will directly hit the data source and get evaluated and retrieve the data to Power BI. But for direct query, query folding or ability to translate the query to the data source native language is must. But again, as I told you, direct query also comes with several downsides. First of which is compromising with the performance. As all the queries go back to the data source and get evaluated there, the response time drastically increases in comparison to the import mode. And performance totally depends on the optimization of the data source or your DB server. How powerful is your data source or DB server is. If your DB server is not good enough, then you are going to see a lot of performance bottlenecks. You are going to see a lot of delays in the report, getting loaded into the Power BI. So that's why if your data source is considered slow or ill-equipped and to handle the high volume of analytical queries, then the import mode is the best option or preferred option. But if near real-time visibility of data source is essential for business requirement, let's say you have an e-commerce company, you wanted to track which campaign is working or not working, you want to track almost near real-time data, then direct query or is the another option. And there is one more option also called live mode. So let's talk about live mode. So for the live mode, I'm going to create one more Power BI file. Let me to create one more PPIX file. So let's understand what exactly is live mode. So before connecting to the live mode, I'm just going to connect to my analysis services, and I want to connect to my particular database or model in our analysis services. Because live mode is only works for the all the Power BI dataset or tabular models or any kind of analysis services database. So if your data source is analysis services database or tabular model database or Power BI dataset, then you can work with them on the live mode. Let's say we have a sales cube, and in our Power BI we are going to connect to the that particular cube or analysis services database. Okay, now let's connect to the get data and connect to the analysis services. And let me to give you the same server. Now you can see connect live. For my SQL Server Analysis Services database, I can do connect live. Now let me to connect to my sales cube. And you can see we are getting connected. Yeah, you can see now the live connection connected on a through a live connection. Now we have connected to our data set or our analysis services through a live connection. Live connection gives us exactly the same kind of real time kind of access to the source data the way direct query does. And why we go through a live connection? As I told you, a lot of time what happens, before databases were not so powerful, and we had a restriction of 1 GB of import, like we cannot import more than 1 GB of data to the Power BI in memory. So that time what we used to do, we used to create analysis services or tabular model, and we used to kind of aggregate the data there, and we used to connect to that tabular model through the live connection. And there is no limit there, because in tabular model you can also put, there is like according to your system configuration, you can put lot of amount of data, lot of GBs of data in memory, and then our Power BI will connect to that particular model through the live connection. So we can, so that kind of 1 GB limitation, to find a workaround, we used to have a live connection. We used to put the data in memory through a tabular model. Tabular model used to, bring all the data to the in memory, and our Power BI used to connect to that tabular model through a live connection or through a Power BI dataset. So that's why we used to have the live connection. Live connection and direct query are pretty much similar, more or less. They give us the almost real-time data, but they have a lot of limitations as we discussed earlier. So there is one more mode of getting data. It's composite mode. It's a pretty new mode, the composite mode. So let me to create a new Power BI file, and let me to show you how the composite mode works. So composite modes is basically a mix of direct query and import mode. That means we can bring one table through a import mode and one table through a direct query. A lot of time we are connected to our database through a direct query, and we have some kind of files, let's say Excel files or something, we are bringing through a import mode. Because as I told you, import mode works fine if we have a lesser amount of data or data size are less. To work with a big tables or large amount of data, then direct query has to be there. Otherwise we cannot import all the data to the Power BI. It will be too heavy for Power BI. I mean, it will, Power BI has some kind of limitations. So now let's say we are in Power BI, and what we are going to do, we are going to connect to our SQL database, and here we'll be bringing one table as a import mode, Normally what we do, we bring the dimension tables which are little kind of less rows, and we'll bring that table through import mode. Let's say dim date, we are going to bring to the Power BI as import mode. And big tables like fact tables which have massive amount of rows, which has massive amount of data, which size is too big, then we'll connect to that table through a direct query. So let dim date to be loaded first. It's getting imported. Yeah. So now let's go back again and connect to our database. And again, let's connect through a direct query. And this time we'll be connecting to our fact table. Let's say we're connected to our fact internet sales table. Okay. So now you see we have two different tables here. If you check dim date, you can see the storage mode is import. But if you see the fact internet sales, the storage mode is direct. And if you see down, you can see storage mode as mixed. So that means this is the mix mode or composite mode. So these composite modes are the mix of direct query and import mode. Before the introduction of composite models, when direct query was used in a report, no other data connection were allowed for the report. That was a kind of a limitation. If we are using a direct query, we cannot really connect to data set through any other model or in other mode, sorry, in any other mode. So you cannot connect to any other mode, to any other data set if we have already existing connection to through a direct mode. But now through a composite mode, we can connect to a particular table through a direct mode. We can connect to another table through a import mode. Okay, so hope this clears about how the Power BI connects to the different data set through different modes. I mean, now we know what is import mode, what is live connection, what is direct query, and what is composite mode. Fair enough. Now let's understand one more thing called query folding. What exactly is query folding in Power BI? So to understand the query folding, and why it is important. This is one of the very important thing in Power BI called query folding. Apart from the connectivity modes, another aspect of integrating Power BI with different data source is query folding. Essentially, for the scenarios where large data volumes are involved. That means, like if we are talking or if we are working with a large data volume, then this is pretty essential. Query folding is very important. So query folding is the ability to translate any transformation step into the data source native language. Any specific transformation step folds mean that will be get executed at the data source end. That means let's okay, let's have a closer look at the particular Power Query. Let's go back to a Power Query and let me to create a new file, new Power BI file. Okay, let's go back to transform data and click on the transform data here. Now we are in the Power Query editor. So what exactly Power Query does? I hope you guys have some idea about the Power Query. Just to give you some idea about Power Query, just a brief idea. Basically, once data comes into the query editor, there are a lot of transformations options. It's available in Power Query, where we can transform the data, we can kind of do a lot of kind of data quality checks, like if there is null values or something, duplicate values. If you want to remove duplicate, remove nulls, all those things we can do. We can do append or merge, all those activities we can do in the Power Query Editor. So we have a transformation ribbon. If you can see here, like we have a transform ribbon. You can do a lot of activities like transform the data and other things. And then we have query settings. All the transformations applied to a specific query would be listed under the query settings. Like if you see properties called query settings, like whatever the transformations we are applying, so you can see all those steps in the this query settings. Okay, let's go back to the query folding. Suppose we need to report only only one specific country data. We want to show in a report one specific country's data. Let's say currently, or one particular dates data or year data or something like that. Let's say if you see, we have two tables. One is fact internet sales, which has data for a lot of different dates, and we have a dim date. Okay. So now let's say for the fact internet sales, I don't want to bring the data for all the dates. Let's say we have a order date key, and I want to put a filter so that I can only bring the data for a specific time frame. I want to put a filter here. Let's say I'm going click on the right click on that top of that column, and I want to create a filter to bring the data for a specific year. I don't want to bring all the years data. So we can do something else here. We have a kind of remove empty or number of filters. Let's say I'm going to put a filter here where number of filters, or maybe we can do one thing rather than select, or we are going to select few days of data. Let's say we are only going to select few days of data. Click on OK. Now, if you see in the query setting, one filter has been applied. Okay, one filter has been applied in the query settings. Now we have data for some specific dates, whatever we have put it in the filter. Now, if you also go and see the advanced editor, you can see one step must have added here, filter rows. This step has been added to the existing step, whatever the our Power BI query was written to fetch the data from the data source. Now one extra step has been added, filter rows. Okay, so done. Let's say we have pulled a filter because we don't want to bring all the dates data and overloaded the Power BI file. We know Power BI has a lot of limitation in terms of the memory. We don't want to bring all the data to the memory and then filter, file, publishing, or showing to the people, that this is the report containing only this particular date's data. No, we want to filter in the source level. We want to bring the data less. We don't want to bring all the data. We want the data to be filtered in the database, and only those data which is really satisfying the filter condition can come to the Power BI. So now, if you see, we have applied the filter here. Okay. Now, if the steps fold, then the data would get filtered on the database itself, and only a subset of data which is relevant for satisfying the filter condition would get imported to the Power BI. Contrarily, if that step does not fold, the entire dataset would get imported to the Power BI. On top of that, the filter, what we are applying that particular date, would get applied locally in the Power BI desktop. That means that it won't be kind of good enough if you have working with the large number of data size. So now, as we have applied this filter, how you can know that query folding is working? Now we have applied this filter. Then what are the options for us to know that if query folding is working or not? Okay. After applying that particular step, we can right click and see view native query. If this is grayed out, that means query folding is not working. If this is not grayed out, that means the query folding is working. So now you can see the view native query, the query will be fired to the database like this, where they have putting that filter what we have applied is been part of the where condition. That means this query will be fired to the database, and data which will be satisfied this where condition will be only coming to the Power BI. That's, we are not going to bring all the data to Power BI. Only order dates which is satisfying this particular filter condition in where clause will be coming to the Power BI. And that's the great thing about Power BI, because we really don't want to bring all the data to the Power BI and put a filter locally. We want to put a kind of a filter which can go back and work on the database, restrict the data there, only bring the data which satisfy the particular filter condition. Guys, hope this will clear your doubts on the working with, whenever you are going to work with the data and when we are going to bring the data to the Power BI, you are now confident enough what kind of mode you should use and how to filter the data. So thank you guys for watching this video. Thank you.